That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. In our AM 560 Weather Center, morning shower or thunderstorm is possible. Less humid this afternoon, a high 85, clear and 67 overnight. 76 at O'Hare. Next news at 7. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Wealth Management Group, hosted by Craig Bolanos. Heard Sunday mornings at 10.
Let freedom ring this afternoon at 2 with Sean Hannity on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy, and I want to continue our discussion about getting the kids back to school. I know that's a preeminent concern to anybody who has school-age children, as well as, frankly, anybody who cares about the future of America and getting children educated. So it should include all of us.
Do you know how many people I spoke with over the weekend that are so fearful? They are not sending their kids back to school, even if there is in-person learning. I was hard-pressed to find somebody who agrees or thinks like-minded like myself who wants to have their kids go back to school. It's unbelievable to me.
Well, but before we get to that and more depth, I want to get Steve Mnuchin in here because he was on Chris Wallace on Sunday. And I'll tell you what, I will repeat. It is not draining the swamp when you have a Goldman Sachs guy as your point person for fiscal policy, including phase 4 COVID relief. Mnuchin has been wholly unimpressive. This surrender on payroll tax cut, as well as on unemployment insurance to some extent, is painful to watch and even more painful to hear explained by Mnuchin. Here's the technical fix, as he describes, paying people more to stay home than to work, to unemployment insurance going forward, where they're settling, at least with respect to the proposal to be unveiled today.
What we've seen is now that we want to have the technical correction and we want to have something which pays people about 70% wage replacement, which I think is a very fair level. So it's not a fixed number. It's something that pays you a percentage of your wages that are lost.
Mm-hmm. And on explaining the about face on the payroll tax cut?
Well, in our conversations with Pelosi and Schumer, it was very clear that the Democrats were not going to give us a payroll tax cut. So that's something the president will come back and look at later in the year. But the money goes
sir,
in.
If I may, just briefly, it wasn't just Democrats. There were a number of Republicans who rejected this. I want to put them up on the screen. Some of the top Republican leaders in the Senate: John Thune, John Cornyn, Chuck Grassley, the head of Senate Finance. They all said they had no interest in that. And well, so you got blowback not just from Democrats, but from some top Republicans as well.
There were other Republicans that supported it. And let me just say, again, we know we need bipartisan support. We have tax credits that we've put in here to incentivize people to get back to work and small businesses to hire people. We have the direct payments. And as you know, the direct payments are a much quicker way of effectively giving everybody a tax cut. And it's much quicker than the payroll tax cut.
Spoken like a true Keynesian hack. To suggest that a government check is the same thing as government restraint on taking from a business, which is what a payroll tax is, are the same things? They're not the same things. One is a transfer payment. One is deepening debt. The other is removing government from the marketplace, even temporarily, as a growth mechanism. Transfer payments, not pro-growth. Removing taxes, which are, right, penalties on work,
right,
that's pro-growth. And for him to conflate the two is either wildly ignorant or wildly disingenuous. He can pick. For more on all these matters COVID-related, we're pleased to be joined again by Phil Kerpen, president of the American Commitment and chairman of the Internet Freedom Coalition. Phil, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. I don't know what your view is, but I know you're a free market conservative type of guy. And so on the administration's performance and Mnuchin's as its face on this with respect to phase 4 relief.
Catastrophically bad. I mean, look, they haven't even started negotiating with Nancy Pelosi yet. This is just Republicans negotiating with themselves, and they've given up almost everything. So, look, I mean, if their position is, we want unemployment to be really, really, really high. We want to elevate unemployment, keep lots of people out of work ahead of the election. Then this is a great policy. Let's have enhanced unemployment benefits, as far as the eye can see. But that's really dumb economics and really dumb politics. It makes no sense. And this idea that, well, we're going to extend, $300 a week or $200 a week on top of state unemployment benefits, but not $600 as some sort of an initial opening compromise, is pretty mind-blowing when you consider that when Democrats controlled the House, Senate, and White House, and it was Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Barack Obama doing enhanced unemployment benefits in the Obama stimulus bill in 2009, do you know what they added to unemployment benefits? They added $25 a week.
Wow.
They put $25 a week on
But
top. That was when Democrats controlled everything.
Yeah, President Trump said he wouldn't sign it unless there's a payroll tax cuts included in it. Do you think he'll change his mind too?
Well, he's obviously not his position anymore, per Mnuchin, right?
Yeah, I think he's changed his position on that. He's given up on that. And it's, hey, look, I mean, there was some Republican resistance that was disappointing because it's not like they had any better idea in terms of something that would actually be pro-growth and, pro-work and get things moving. And if the Republicans in Congress had a better tax cut idea or something else that actually would be beneficial for the economy as an alternative, then they could have offered that and we could have talked about it. But basically, the president called the play. He put the tax cut on the table, and they should have supported it. They should support it, frankly, still. So the idea that Nancy Pelosi didn't want to do it, so we're taking it off the table. Okay, great. What's the point of holding the Senate then?
Right, exactly. And if Mitch McConnell is balking, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put make John Cornyn uncomfortable. Well, sorry, Mitch. Do you want me to go to the mat on liability protection for businesses who reopen? Because we should do that. But
none of these guys are going to win their Senate races if the economy is stalled out.
Right. No. I mean, I understand, but it's just in terms of their, how thick is their bubble argument. If they're not seeing it, and you have to play power politics within your own party for the betterment of, number one, American families and the economy, and number two, your own party's electoral chances, then you do it. You can't just, concede out of the gate, like you said, internally before you even go face down Schumer and Pelosi. Here's a position, too, the president could take, and this is one that's effectively been advocated by Laffer and Moore and Kudlow. I think Kudlow more quietly than the other two for obvious reasons. But, okay, you want to do a payroll tax cut, Nancy Pelosi? Fine. Then we won't do anything. We won't do anything. We'll take our chances with the entrepreneurial spirit of Americans rather than, this $1,200 sugar high for a few weeks, in terms of another round of disbursements.
I wish they had the guts to do that, frankly. They act like unemployment going back to normal benefits is some sort of catastrophic cliff, that the Democrats have all this leverage because we would never let that happen. Frankly, I think that if we would just let that come and go and be willing to do that, the benefit of that, the economic benefit of that would be greater than the short-term political pain and the media blowback and so forth, because people will go back to work.
Phil, you and I... Yeah, you and I are both old enough to remember way back when Nancy Pelosi said unemployment insurance checks are stimulative. She was ridiculed, and deservedly so. And now the Republicans seem to be operating from that same position, that same premise.
I also remember when she loved the payroll tax cut when Obama did it.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't that long ago when that was a wonderful idea. Now it's terrible.
But see, all of this requires making arguments, and there's just sometimes, and I don't understand, because Trump is usually willing to get into a brawl, but you have to make arguments in order to move people and to cobble together winning coalitions, and they just don't want to make an argument out of this. They just want to write checks.
It's very disappointing, and to your point, there's a huge difference between the government writing everyone checks and cutting taxes. We want to create an incentive to create jobs. We want to create an incentive for people to go back to work at those jobs. If you send out checks indiscriminately to everyone, whether they're working or not, you have the opposite effect. It's not as bad as paying people specifically not to work with the enhanced unemployment benefits, but it's still pretty bad because you have a lot of people say, okay, I got this check, I'm going to wait another couple of weeks before I look for a job. So it still has a destimulative effect.
All right, on Thursday, the CDC released new back-to-school guidelines saying that it's imperative, for social, emotional, mental risk to keep students in, if that will happen if they stay at home and not have in-person learning, that outweighs the risk of catching this disease. Who is spreading the most fear-mongering? Is it the Democratic politicians in Illinois or Democratic politicians in other states?
I think it's the media more than anyone, and it's really been interesting to see because we had basically total consensus that children are not at risk and that we ought to be in school. And really, the CDC's position has been the schools never should have closed, which I find amazing because I don't know how they can be so oblivious to be like the head health agency in this country and essentially claim, oh, we didn't notice that every single school in the country closed. That probably shouldn't have happened, but not tell us that until recently. Isn't that unbelievable? That's what they're saying. It's like, oh, no, we never said school closed. Oh, really? Look, I think what we're seeing is the most powerful force in America today is negative partisanship. And frankly, when Trump said he was for it, that meant that the Democrats and the media were going to be against it.
Bingo.
And everything switched after that event at the White House. And it was a bizarre thing to witness because this is a disease that everyone agrees is less dangerous to children than influenza. You have a lower hospitalization rate, you have a lower death rate. And by the way, influenza is very low already. I'm not saying you should be scared and worried about the flu. I'm just saying for context, it's not true to say no children will be hospitalized or killed by this, but the risk is so low. It's lower than influenza. It's lower than driving to school. And so it's lower than risks that we all automatically accept and discount, or we wouldn't be able to live our lives. And if we're suddenly going to be so fearful and anxious over tiny, tiny, tiny risks, then we could never reopen a school ever again because there's some risks you're just never going to eliminate. And so I think it's very unfortunate. I think we're putting our own irrational fears and anxieties ahead of what's best for our children. I think we're failing them as parents. We're failing them as a society. And, it's just very sad. It's very unfortunate because children who are least at risk of this disease are suffering some of the largest burden from these very extended school closures.
I wish President Trump and every Republican at the federal level would just rinse and repeat exactly what you just said and the way you said it. That the standard you're setting, just understand this. And then, we won't say another word about it. Just understand it. The standard you're setting, hysterics, the media, is we will never reopen the school again because of just exactly what you said, influenza more lethal. And, of course, we've never closed schools because of influenza outbreaks. But that's the standard you're setting. So if that's the America you want to live in, then vote for the lockdown artists that surround Joe Biden. That's it. If you want to be beholden to the teachers union, never have in-person learning again, and fundamentally alter forever your child's intellectual and social development, then follow what the left is saying. Right? It's that simple.
I think that what we're essentially seeing is we're seeing the irrational fears and anxieties of parents being exploited by unions that see this as an opportunity for leverage, for essentially a political power play, for a de facto strike in all but name, because they want more money, essentially. That seems to be the central demand. But they're also making all these other weird, unrelated political demands. And so a lot of these documents from unions say things like, defund the charter schools and pass Medicare for all and defund the police and all these sorts of just sort of aspirational.
Sure.
New Green Deal in L.A.
Sure. Teachers aren't safe until there's no charter schools. It's not safe to be in the classroom until there's no charter schools.
Well, I don't know if you read, but the Chicago Tribune did a story where they asked, people, what are your concerns about the upcoming school year? Not people, but teachers and social workers. And one woman said, what if a student or educator dies? Or what if a 14-year-old comes to school with COVID and is asymptomatic, passes it on to his best friend, and kills his best friend's mom? They're out of their minds hysterical.
Well, one of the top epidemiologists in the United Kingdom and advisors to the UK government is a guy named Mark Woolhouse, a doctor from the University of Edinburgh.
Yep.
And he said they've reviewed all of the evidence in the entire world that they've been able to get their hands on, and they have not yet discovered a single case a single confirmed case in which a teacher was infected by one of their students. And so I'm not saying it can't happen and never will happen, but the next time it does will be the first confirmed time in the entire world. So this is an extreme low probability event. Children not only rarely get this disease, but they are almost never infectious when they do get it. The study from South Korea that the Chicago Tribune misheadlined as saying children were highly infectious, if you look in the study, it actually says 97% of households that had the disease in South Korea, it was an adult who brought it into the household. And the other 3%, the paper didn't say this, but a researcher named Alistair Munro, who's seen the Korean data set, said this. The other 3%, it was actually a shared exposure event where an adult and child were both in the initial exposure. And so 97% of the time, an adult brought it into the household. The other 3, we're not sure who brought it into the household. But it is hardly the case, as both the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune falsely headlined that study, that children are highly infectious. There's no evidence of that.
He is Phil Kerpen, president of the American Commitment and chairman of the Internet Freedom Coalition. Phil, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. Drug makers ponder the impact of President Trump's executive orders to cut drug prices. Honeywell sees a big drop in sales. Hearst loses the head of its magazine division. Those stories next. I was talking with Dr. McQuillan from Omega XL about some aches and some pains I've been having. She said whether it's your back, knee, neck, or shoulder pain, the cause is likely inflammation. She said you have to defeat inflammation to stop the pain. And she said if you don't, it can cause permanent damage. Omega XL is designed to attack the inflammation that causes pain. Pain relievers and topicals just mess the problem. Omega XL works to neutralize the inflammation that causes painful, stiff joints and muscles. The doctor also told me with my prescription pad, I can't write anything that comes close to doing what Omega XL does. If you're suffering with aches and pains and stiffness, try Omega XL. Order Omega XL now and get a second bottle free. Visit OmegaXL.com/Lou. That's